The sun had not yet risen over the dense, humid jungles of late Cretaceous India. A thick mist clung to the ground, making the forest look like a world between life and death. Enormous cycads and towering conifers formed twisted silhouettes, their ancient branches blocking most of the early morning light. The jungle was alive with faint growls, rustling leaves, distant calls, and the heavy breathing of predators waiting for the day to begin. In the middle of this ancient wilderness moved a creature feared by all, Rajasaurus narmadensis, the king lizard of the Narmada. He was not the largest carnivore ever to walk the earth, but his presence alone forced the jungle into silence. His massive skull was crowned with a single horn rising from the center of his forehead, a symbol of power that no other predator in the region possessed. Rajasaurus walked slowly through the jungle, every step deliberate, his claws sinking deep into the wet soil. His heavy tail dragged across the ground, leaving a long trail behind him. His nostrils flared as he tasted the scent of the forest. He could smell prey, rivals, and danger from incredible distances. The ground shook with each step, not because he was enormous, but because of the sheer force of his muscles. Even the thick mist parted as he moved forward. He paused, lifting his head high, his sharp eyes scanning the silent forest. Every smaller creature in the jungle felt his presence. A flock of early birds scattered from the tree canopy. A group of small herbivores froze in fear, waiting for him to pass. Even a crocodilian lurking near a swamp slid back into the water silently. The storm clouds thickened over the ancient Indian jungle, turning the sky into a swirling mass of grey and green. Lightning flashed behind the treetops, illuminating the dense forest for the briefest second before darkness swallowed everything again. The heavy smell of rain mixed with the musk of wet earth drifted across the land. Rajasaurus, still damp from the first drops of the forming storm, continued his slow but powerful walk through the jungle. His horn glistened as water trickled down its sides. His senses were alert, not because he feared anything, but because a king always listened to the whispers of his kingdom. Thunder rumbled again. But underneath the thunder, there was another sound, a soft rustle, a shifting leaf, a vibration in the earth. Something was following him. Rajasaurus paused, his nostrils flared, testing the air. His pupils shrank to thin slits as he scanned the dark forest around him. He stood perfectly still, letting the jungle's noise settle. Rain began to pour more heavily, masking the scent trails, making tracking difficult even for a predator as experienced as him. But the feeling remained. He wasn't alone. Far behind him, hidden among thick roots and giant ferns, a pair of glowing amber eyes watched silently. Their owner remained crouched low, blending perfectly into the shadows. This creature had been watching Rajasaurus since the morning, studying his movements, learning his patterns, measuring his strength. The storm was now at full strength, thunder echoing like ancient drums across the Cretaceous sky. Sheets of rain hammered the jungle floor, turning soil into deep mud and bending massive ferns under their weight. But nothing. Not the storm, not the darkness, not even the roaring river nearby, could drown out the violent clash of the two giants battling for supremacy. Rajasaurus and his challenger slammed into each other again, their powerful bodies crashing with enough force to shake the ground beneath them. Water splashed with every movement, turning the clearing into a storm of mud and fury. The king was stronger, heavier, and more experienced, but the challenger was relentless. His hunger for territory, for survival, for dominance gave him a cruel, wild energy. The storm finally passed, leaving the forest soaked, heavy, and eerily silent. Water dripped from enormous fern leaves in slow, rhythmic beats. Fog rolled across the jungle floor, twisting around tree trunks like pale ghosts searching for warmth. The night had fully descended, wrapping everything in thick darkness. Rajasaurus moved slowly now, his powerful body bruised and bleeding from the brutal battle. Every step felt heavier than the last. The cuts along his ribs burned with each breath, and dried blood clung to his scales in dark streaks. He was victorious. The challenger lay defeated far behind him, but the cost had been steep. Still, a king did not rest in the open. He pushed forward through the soaked undergrowth, looking for higher ground where he could watch the forest and recover. His tail dragged behind him, leaving a long trail carved through the mud. Fireflies flickered around him for a moment before disappearing into the darkness again. The jungle smelled different now, not just of rain and soil, but of something older and more dangerous. A scent Rajasaurus did not recognize. He paused, raising his head. His nostrils flared, tasting the air with slow, deep breaths. It was faint, but clearly there. A musky odor, mixed with the metallic scent of fresh blood. His muscles tightened instinctively. Someone, or something, was close. A branch snapped somewhere behind him. Not loud, not accidental. A precise step. Rajasaurus spun his head sharply, but the fog was too thick to see through. The forest remained still. Too still. He growled softly, a warning to whatever lurked nearby. No response. He continued walking, but now his movements were careful, deliberate. His senses sharpened, scanning every shadow. Then he heard it again. Not behind him this time, to his right. A low growl, followed by another. Then another. 3 growls in different directions. Rajasaurus turned, stepping back instinctively. His eyes darted through the darkness. Shapes began to move within the fog. Not large like him, not solitary, not Rajasaurus. These were smaller, but fast, coordinated, and deadly. A pack. The night dragged on slowly, each hour stretching like an eternity. The jungle around Rajasaurus was dark, unforgiving, and filled with the whispers of unseen creatures. Fog still clung to the ground, glowing faintly under the moonlight. The king stood weakly between 2 enormous trees, his massive frame trembling from blood loss and exhaustion. Wounds covered his sides, legs, and tail. Blood dripped in steady streams onto the soaked earth. His breathing was heavy, slow, almost labored. The battle with the challenger had been brutal, but the ambush by the pack had pushed him to the edge. Yet even in this wounded state, Rajasaurus remained standing. A king did not kneel. The jungle sensed his vulnerability. Small predators gathered at the edges of the fog, watching him with cautious eyes. None dared approach, not yet, but hunger gleamed in their gaze. They were waiting for him to fall, waiting for the king's final breath. But there was one creature who wasn't just waiting. It was hunting. Hidden somewhere in the mist, the last Rahiolisaurus, the survivor of the pack, watched the towering figure of the king with cold, calculating intent. It had seen its brothers die, crushed beneath the claws of the larger predator. Now, vengeance mixed with hunger inside its chest. Slowly, silently, the lone hunter began to circle. Rajasaurus sensed it. Even in his weakened state, he recognized the presence of the predator stalking him. He lifted his head, though it felt impossibly heavy. His eyes scanned the shifting fog. A low growl escaped his throat. Weak, but still commanding. The hunter responded with silence. Minutes passed. Rainwater dripped from the leaves. The wind barely moved. The forest held its breath. Then the attack came. The Rahiolisaurus burst from the fog like a lightning bolt, jaws wide, aiming directly for the king's wounded leg. The bite was deep and cruel, tearing into fresh flesh. Rajasaurus roared, a roar filled with agony. The jungle shook with the sound, but instead of collapsing, the king reacted.